Hello, good morning. Welcome in to another episode of Good Morning NASDAQ right here on the Clover Trading YouTube channel. It is the second day of March, year of our Lord 2026. We welcome you to another month. If we could have a prayer for this month, it would be that every show we have no technical difficulties and that the Wi-Fi holds up. And that's really it. Besides that, we'd obviously like to trade really well. We are opening the month with some volatility already. We're not going to go into the exact specifics. Well, maybe we'll see where it takes us, but you guys know what's going on in the world and where the gappers are coming from. Oil and gas, energy is littering the list of gappers this morning. Some up as much as 200 and something percent. A couple in that 80 to 150% up on the day as well. So we will talk through that. A little blast from the past. It feels a little bit like early 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. The same sector, some of the same tickers. INDO. I don't know if INDO is on this list. Yep, and that was actually the first one to go. I remember that weekend Huddy was visiting me. I wish she was here to talk through this, but INDO actually had a really solid breakout, gapped up big, ended up selling off that day. So we'll kind of get into the strategies going into this morning for these gappers, but it was wild, and then it kicked off a little stretch where we had IMPP, my biggest trade of all time, INDO breaking out again later, the next week. HUSA, GBR, ENSV, a lot of tickers that I don't know if are around anymore. We certainly have a couple new ones here that I've seen before in the world, in our world. But we'll see where this leads us. I'm not going to get all excited about the potential here because a lot still has to happen. They still have to set up. They have to become good charts. One of the main things that I try to do during sector momentum, which is what I would call this, every gapper on the list is a part of the same sector. We can very easily correlate it to world news and global economies and why they're moving, is to still trade patterns as if I didn't know the news. The news, obviously I do know the news, so the back of my brain is going to have more conviction in certain situations. But if I approach every trade in a similar fashion, the last thing I want to do is for sector momentum to come around and to feel like that means I need to start doing a whole lot more. Like, what it means to me is like you should make a whole lot more on really quality setups that come around because you have the extra bit of confidence in the fact that you have sector momentum. Doesn't mean I just go out and start buying all these things up 100% in the pre-market and changing the strategy completely. I still want to wait for them to come into my wheelhouse, become patterns. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes these will just pop today. This will be the end of the entire sector and it's over. Right? Obviously not rooting for that, but if that's the case, I don't need to take losses just because I feel like I need to be excited about something that hasn't really happened yet. We got a bunch of gappers, and now we'll see where the week takes us. We got no thanks in here. Dylan, good morning. Warren, Jiri says the world is so effed up, but it will gain some volume in the market. It's kind of the two-sided coin of trading. Sometimes the biggest and best opportunities that we get, especially in small cap land, come at the expense of other people. It's a zero-sum game in nature, but you think about COVID and people losing their lives and us trading mask companies and vaccine companies, but it's an insane market. You think about oil and gas in 2022. You never want to be the person rooting for bombs to go off or war to start. It's a very tricky place ethically and morally, so I don't think it's wrong for you to say that. But it definitely has brought some momentum into small caps for better or worse. And our job is to sit here and trade little green and red lines on a chart. And so that's what we will do. Wayne in here, disclosed match for fun. Good morning. Good morning. Here as we hit the top of the hour. I think it's probably best. Also, I'm by myself, guys. You see the background. I don't know what that is. Some little pool or something. It's the background of the day. My backgrounds change every day, so it's nice to see some new things. And Kyle and Huddy are traveling home from Traders for a Cause. I hear it was good. I actually didn't hear much at all. My weekends are pretty boring as a 30-year-old father. I didn't do a whole lot. I did do some reflections and get my numbers ready to go for a couple video lessons coming out for the clovers. I did do a video lesson. It's like a 40-minute long one, all about breakouts and kind of my strategy and my system going forward with them. Just a couple tweaks to it, but just want to get that out to the clovers. So check it out if you are in the room, and you have 37 minutes to spare. But yes, we are alone. So if you have any questions, leave them in here. We'll get out of here at a good time, 9:15 probably, so we can all get ready and prepared for the open with a lot of stuff moving. And besides that, there's really not a lot on my watch list. A lot of the stuff broke out. End of last week, you had, if I can get to charts here, XWell broke out and then failed on Friday. EDSA broke out and then failed on Friday. CDIO kind of gapped up into the breakout and then is failing right now. A lot of things that just kind of, at the end of the week, RXT broke out then failed. So a lot of the stuff that was on the watch list going into this, and at the end of the last week, is not like still there. Most of it has failed. Maybe it sets up for later this week, but it looks like we all kind of know the tickers in the direction of where this week is headed. We'll see if it offers opportunities or not. But let's just get into it. What I'll do here, instead of looking at them all individually, we'll kind of look at them across the board because that's what they really are. You got, if we take a look at this, this is a scanner. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but you got TMDE, energy, petroleum, TPAT, battle, oil, energy, turb, energy, USEG. The bigger gaps are kind of these top four. So we'll go through them and look if there's anything specifically horrible there. But it's not like there's going to be one specific piece of catalyst that's like moving these. It's what took place over the weekend with Iran. And so that's why they're up. Whatever one you choose here, I think every single one on here, I don't know what stack is or Ruby, but you're pretty much looking at all the gappers being in the same world from the same sector because of the same news. From there, in any situation where we have 4 or 5 gappers like this all in the same world, even if they're not, I guess, all in the same world, you have a situation where someone like Huddy, who's like a big gap and crap short seller, these are probably mornings that give you a little bit of pause and are a little bit scary. The prospect of shorting out of the gate or into some sort of morning low, 4 or 5 different gappers, knowing that they're all kind of correlated as well. Just the idea of them all just being strong, continuing out of the gate and stopping you out. It's a big, probably scary for the system. But it's mornings like this where you probably have to do so if you are strictly a gap and crap short seller. It's also probably pretty unlikely that most of these continue higher. 100% gaps, 200% gaps are difficult to maintain and continue. This is kind of, again, like I said, the first wave of these sectors going. There's been rumblings for weeks and some of them have popped up and we've seen them here and there. None of them have traded all that well going into this weekend. You kind of had to gamble on this happening at this particular time, which is not necessarily something that we do over at Clover all too often. We would rather take advantage of these plays going forward. But looking at all these, and from the long side, it's probably a game of which ones hold up and which ones fail. So we'll kind of take a look at these one by one on the dilution tracker. Then we'll kind of look at them all on the charts as well. But just so you kind of know, it's a sector move here. It's a sector play, and that is what's going on here. So TMDE is your biggest gapper. This one's up over 200% this morning, up 231%, closed sub dollar, opened, been as high as like the high fours and $5 area. Marine shipping company, fuel bunkering services, sulfur, high sulfur fuel oil. But obviously no news today. Maybe some of these have some PRs, just kind of making sure that the world knows they're correlated so they can get some pump going. But for the most part, they're up because traders do what traders do, and traders look for the next hot thing. If there is something big in the world that we expect to move stocks, they go down the list and they go, what's in the oil and gas world? What's an energy play? What has a smaller float? They kind of work their way down. And as we get to 4 a.m., a lot of the main ones were gapping, into the overnight session last night when the overnight started. And Into this morning, traders flock. They flock to whatever is hot, and that's why we're in the midst of some big gap ups right now. So it's not necessarily that TMD Energy came out with some groundbreaking news today. It's that they fit the bill for what people expect should go up, and because of that, it went up. Not a great situation here. Minus 6 months of cash. I don't really see anything else. It's a pretty low float, 3.5 million. Just go back. We'll take a look at all the daily charts again in a second. But kind of a fresh chart from 2025. It's had some runs. Might as well go through them one at a time while we're on them. So like I said, pretty fresh chart. Has had some gaps over multiple days. Traded increased volume. You kind of draw your lines at the most recent high from this year in the mid ones, and then up here in the high twos, and it's kind of through all that resistance right now. Volume has not quite eclipsed the volume from those runs. Likely that will happen by the end of the day. And yeah, there's not a ton for me to say. It's kind of, when you have a grouping of this, I expect maybe one, maybe two to continue higher of these bigger gappers or hold up throughout the morning. I expect a couple to give it up right away. The ones that are truly just, they don't have any short squeeze, buyers just came in and then it's just selling all day. Maybe you have a way of predicting which one those will be based on the fundamentals and the share structure and all that stuff. It's not something that I spend too much time trying to do. But even in any circumstance, when we have multiple big gappers, my expectation is just, finding the needle in the haystack. Which one's going to be bonkers and which ones are going to fade. I am not going to play that game. I'm going to wait and see which ones do what and learn from the trading of today. But if we're just kind of looking at this from a technical perspective, it's kind of through all major resistance levels. Does it hold in the high twos and go higher? Does it fail and fade off? That's kind of really the two questions that you got to solve for yourself if you want to trade these, at least right out of the gate. I think the easiest type of option, if I wanted to long any of these plays today, would be let the morning play out and wait for confirmation. Which ones are holding daily levels, which ones are trading massive volumes, which ones do appear to have short stuck, which ones are holding up strong into the close, doing massive volume like that, and then maybe look to try to gap one more night. But again, we're early in the onset of all this, so news catalysts are going to be kind of knee-jerk. If all of this ends tomorrow, these will probably come back down. You kind of want to wait to the point where the charts get bigger than the news, and anything you're seeing on TV or any random press releases or press conferences, what's being said doesn't necessarily move them automatically in the direction you expect. And so we're so early that it's hard to quite tell which ones are going to hold up and which ones aren't. But that is TMDE, your biggest gapper, one that kind of came out of nowhere. Has popped throughout the year. This year so far has had some volume days, nothing too special, but again has energy in the name, popping up this morning. The next one is TPET. I feel like we've definitely seen this one a few times. Petroleum, oil and gas sector. Well, maybe not recently, but I have definitely heard of this ticker before. 11.9 million float, high across the board. None of these are great looking fundamental situations. Negative 1 month of cash of both that we've looked at so far. Don't have any money. Do they have any news? Nope. All offering and dilution stuff. July offering in progress. Okay. This one gapping right up towards $1. Right into $1 right now, and is trying to work on that door. 135% up on the day. This one hasn't done anything as of recently. So if you were going into this weekend thinking which ones are going to go, technically, this one probably wouldn't, again, if your goal is to just be involved over the weekend, this probably would have been on your radar. But it's not like there was, because there was a kind of a pop across the sector on Friday. INDO was up, Battle was up a bit, kind of tanked right out of an hour into the day, and then kind of reclaimed later. But this one of your bigger gappers, up 150% right now. Let's go back on this daily chart, see what we see. Okay, maybe it was back here at the end of 2024 and 25 on some increased volume that I was watching it or trading it. Has had some runs back in the day over its lifespan. the overall theme is top left to bottom right. These are all turds. They are small caps running because of momentum. And you kind of have resistance all the way up. The volume here is quite impressive versus the rest. You also have to take into account dollar volume, as we are the lowest price we've been in its existence. But this one's kind of popping up. Maybe has some room to run. You know, it's not up as much as that TMTE one, but really at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to sit here and guess which ones are going to run, which ones aren't. I kind of probably prefer Huddy's style of get short these relatively close to the open and expect failure. Anyone who's been investing or speculating on something like this, who believes that this is going to take place over the, sometime soon, and it just happened to happen this weekend, those people are probably more likely to sell. I personally don't really feel like buying these gaps up 100, 200%. It's not something I do. I expect those people to lose on their position, so it wouldn't shock me to see at least weak opens across the board with all these gaps. But again, I do expect at least one probably to hold up and to make some noise, but guessing which one that is above my pay grade. But this one kind of bouncing right now off the lows. Pretty good volume, already over 144 million shares. That is your second biggest gapper, TPET. Moving on to a familiar one. We've talked about this one in the room. I talked about it actually in the webinar last week, a couple days, probably Thursday. We talked about it day before this gap. Let's just see if anything has changed on their dilution. We've done it with all of them. These guys are cash flow positive, lowish float, 4 million. No news over the weekend here. Wish we had our in-house specialist. I hate looking at dilution stuff. I don't see anything, though. So the best looking one out of all of them for that. This one has a little bit more structure than the other ones we brought up, which are kind of just connected to the sector, gapping up really big. Battle has had, a gap and crap day a few weeks ago at the end of January. Has some tops here in the 550s. On decent volume increase on, but it's really not been all that clean. Like I said, this day on Friday was, I don't quite know how, unless you're risking super wide, but if you're risking super wide, you're not making that much even on the gap today. Really weak halt down out of the gate, kind of reclaimed, went sideways. Nothing in after hours to assume that a big gap is coming. I think all that happened on like Saturday, if I remember right. But gapping up really big right now, up 100% from $4 or $5 area into as high as the 12s. Kind of completed all these breakouts. You kind of rather see that happen in market hours. So again, it kind of leads me to think more people will be looking to hit the sell button this morning into 100% plus moves if they've been sitting around buying it during this consolidation, expecting this type of thing to happen. I think your first wave of sellers is probably going to come in this morning. Doesn't mean these can't go higher throughout the week. They can't set up for different patterns. Doesn't mean they can't go bonkers today, and this could be up 500% by the end of the day. I just am not in the business of predicting that. And right now, when we're looking at it at 913, it is a pretty big monster gap up over 100% in the $11 area. And I think the next one is Turb. It's kind of a cool name. All of these kind of fall into the category of lower float, small cap, oil and gas plays. This one says solar, but it's energy. 2.5 million float 58 minutes ago. They're helping operators shield margins from energy price shocks as global volatility intensifies. All caps. This was serious for them. Let me see if that actually popped before or after that news. Okay, no, so they brought the attention to themselves and popped this thing on that news. Correlated themselves to what's hot. Smart move, Turb. They are not profitable. They have minus 2.1 months of cash left. It says overall risk is low, though, across the board besides that cash need. They're out of Spain. The smallest gap of them all has some room on this daily chart. You kind of have a weird sell-off day in November of last year. This one is actually quite a significant gap and crap, or whatever you call the opposite of that. It was a day one gapper that ran wild. Gapped up from the 2s into the 6s and actually ran all the way to 20 before kind of fading off in the days and weeks to come. That's our latest history with Turb, going back 5 or 6 months. So a lot of room here. there's a little bit of precedent. Maybe people see that type of thing and get excited that this is going to be the one because of behavioral history. Again, they don't have any money, but it doesn't appear that they can do anything about that right now. I'm sure they'll find a way to do it. A lot of these tend to do that. But sorry, my phone's going off. Kind of the same thought here as all of them. I'm not going to be the person that's, again, going through and picking each individual one, which one is going to work and which one's not. Again, I lean across the board, fades, just because of how big the gaps are across the board. And, you know, if over the past few weeks they have not really done anything, gone anywhere, been super choppy, I expect anyone who held through that and was waiting for something like this to look at these type of gains, 70, 100%, 200% up, and feel pretty good about that situation overnight, with no guarantee that they're going to become anything later in the week. So Turb is kind of your smallest gapper of the day. There's room here. Volume is okay, 35 million. This has only been running for about an hour, but another gapper in this world. All right, I think that is all of them. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Let's get that number into the 30s. Jerry says, what about battle multi-month breakout? I feel like it gapped up too high. Yeah, it did for me. And the breakout I would have been interested in is one that it kind of flirted around Friday into this 690, but we're at 11. We've been at 12. Like, I mean, even from 7, it's up 50% plus from that. I mean, at 11, it's 50, it's too far gone for me. I would rather wait, set it up for, like, there's nothing for me to buy up at these levels today. Disclosed, asked about USEG. Is this one also on the list? Let's do a quick look. This one looks like a much bigger float. Not that much bigger. U.S. Energy Corp, 16 mil. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing here that separates, like, for me, for the first 3 or 4 hours of the day. There's nothing that I'm going to look at here that separates what I think or believe about these. I'm going to let the dust settle on these gaps and then kind of see Wednesday plus what they look like. Unless some of them go on to make big moves. Maybe Wednesday is like a first red day type of opportunity. But what was the question? Daily 276 resistance. Yeah, we're far away from that 276. But yeah, it's a day one gapper. I mean, at the end of the day, there's resistance behind it or not. It's a day one gapper, and it's not something that I do. And just because you tell me that the sector's hot doesn't mean I'm going to start doing things on day one when I don't do anything on day one. True. People talking about thinking we get hard drops out of the gate. Yeah, kind of just saying, I think we're down hard by the end of the day. Yeah, I would not be surprised. Like I said, these are all big gaps all together. I don't know if there's enough to say that they'll move in correlation with each other, as if, you know, one starts to spike, they all start to spike. I think they're all still their own entities off of the news over the weekend. But my goal would be kind of just keep an eye on which ones hold up and which ones fade and fail. Because if something that's up 150% closes up 10%, 20%, it's not really going to be all that interesting going forward. I'd be really looking for which ones continue. If any of these hold up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, what is it consolidating near the highs? I just have, there's time. If I was going to trade these, I would probably be looking for sell-offs post big gap ups across the board. You know, and even like INDO, you think about the move that kind of started it in 2022, you can't really see here because these charts kind of suck for going back. You just can't zoom in, but you know, this big gap up right here is a big red candle. It opened and then kind of sold off all day before leading to its big run. Like, I'm getting there. I think if there will be something bigger here, we have plenty of time to focus on it and see. If I was in early and looking for this type of move, some sort of situation to happen in the Middle East and gap ups across the board, I would be a seller into this day. I would not be expecting much more out of them today. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. And that's really all that we have to talk about today. It is 9:19, so I think it is good for us to go get prepped and ready to go for the open. We're going to be over in the Clover Room. Got a couple webinars for you guys this week. Looking like some volatility is here. Is it here to stay? We will see. I'm not going to make any predictions. I'm not going to get excited. We'll see towards the end of the week if we have options and opportunities, and if not, we'll just keep going after it. But I hope everyone kind of starts their March on a positive note. Hope you guys are looking at your January, your February, doing your recap, staying. These are the times I used to get really bad with my tracking, get lazy because I was upset in a drawdown, angry, didn't want to know my numbers. Now is the time to go through and really be preparing for each month, going over the past month, understanding what the market's doing right now, all that good stuff. You guys know that. So I hope you guys have a great day, great start to your new month, and we'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully Kyle or Huddy's with me, but if not, I will see you guys there. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you tomorrow, 8:45 a.m.